Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk.
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
A very good evening, our viewers. We thank you for joining us again this evening. It is the 8th day of May 2023, and my name is Abdalatif here with the Hotline Show again. Well, so many things have been happening, murders in the city, and just like we have always experienced this, so many things since this regime has been in power. We have experienced quite a number of challenging events taking place, especially the issue to do with the security of Ugandans, and it's a very big question that has not been well answered. For so many times, we've always had the president of this country, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, boasting of the security and how much they have actually struggled to see that the security is well handled in this country. When they went to the bush in the 1986, actually 1981 to 1986, one of the 10 points program they had, point number 2 was about security. Unfortunately, this could be one of the strongest pillars this regime has been boasting of, but as we speak, it seems to be shaky. So many people have been killed. And no reports have actually been released in that regard. And this is going to be the center for our discussion this evening. And I am privileged. I've been joined by two gentlemen. One is a panelist here, and that's Mr. Joseph Ochieno. He is a UPC leadership candidate. And then I also have a former presidential aspirant, a presidential candidate, Mr. Lubega Mukaaku, has also joined us this evening to be part of tonight's discussion. You're most welcome, Mr. Lubega. I want to start with you.
Good evening, viewers. Thank you for moderating this program and getting us out of the woods to come and discuss matters of national importance. Welcome to my comrade. You said, in fact, in the same vein you take me, he may not be former, still running. At some stage you'll see him on a presidential ballot, because that's what he has prepared, and that is his experience.
Yeah, sure.
Son of UPC, but a son of Uganda.
Indeed. You're most welcome. You're most welcome, Mr. Ochieno, as well. You are our panelist here every Monday.
It's an absolute privilege to have my brother Sam, and it's very generous. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, these are the gentlemen we are with in the studios tonight. And just to give you a hint of the killings we've experienced as a country, I will not go down into the Kayira stuff, and that's kind of broad. I will not go into that. But on 20th April 2012, Sheikh Abdul Karim Sentamu was shot dead. That's along William Street. On 22nd June 2020, after a few months, 2022, we also lost Sheikh Abubakar Chiwewa. This one was shot in Chanja at Prime Supermarket. On 25th of December 2014, we also lost Abdul Qadir Muwaya Shah. He was killed in Mayuge. On 28th December 2014, Mustafa Bahiga, he was also shot in Bwebaja along Entebbe Road. We also had Joan Kagezi. She was shot on 30th of March 2015. Abdul Rashid Wafula, he was shot at the gate of his home in Mbale. We also had Ibrahim Hassan Kiria. He was shot in Boyogere. And this one was killed just after a few days after raising a complaint, after making a statement to the police that his life is in fear, is in danger. But after a few days, he was shot. Major Muhammad Chigundu, he was shot on 26th November 2016. Of course, Andrew Felix Kawesi, we had ASP Chirumira, we had Ibrahim Abiriga, we had Sheikh Chirevu, so many of murders of the same nature. Unfortunately, no single report has ever been released in this regard. I remember I want to quote something after the death of Major Muhammad Chigundu. The then spokesperson of the Uganda police, Andrew Felix Kawe, said, Major Chigundu has been killed in the same fashion the way other Muslim leaders have been killed, and no doubt this is ADF. After a period of like 3 months, he was also gunned down. Well, I want to start this conversation. I want to go with Mr. Ochieno. One of the things this government has boasted of for all the years, even today, if you bring Mr. Museveni and give him a podium, he can never make any speech. He can never make any statement and doesn't talk about security and how he has been able to man security in this country. What is your view? Are these intended killings? Are these wrong errors? Or do we have guns in the wrong hands?
No, it's very, very difficult, very unfortunate. I think it's a very difficult topic too, considering what's happening in the country, that within the last 1 week, there have been 2 major high-profile killings in Kampala. One of a minister, something that shook the country, and something that people sort of still don't understand. And when you look through social media, there are theories up to and including a possibility that Sabiti may have been a setup, you know. So you see all those things in the social media. But most importantly, because the statements that then come formally from the authorities to explain to the nation and talk to the nation very formally are possibly not as satisfactory. And that you get somebody who is later killed, this is the vlogger, who unfortunately, ironically, happens to have made statements about the death of the minister.
Yeah.
Now, that can be very misleading, and it can actually be very diversionary, to the extent that, again, I've seen people who are associated with the minister possibly taking particular positions, views. That's the misfortune of our country.
Making conclusions
Yes.
in regards to the death of the blogger.
And vice versa. But the bottom line is national security is a responsibility of the state. The most important job, in fact, function of any government is to protect the lives and properties of the citizens, whichever country it is. Protection of lives and properties of the citizens. That's the number one responsibility for any government. And so, regardless of anything else, including even if, and I was thinking that you are reading in the list, there is Ibrahim, there is Sheikh, there is Ibrahim, there is Sheikh, the Muslim element. That in itself is a big issue, could be diversion, because I want to put it in context. And then you come and talk about ADF. Even in the most unlikely event that these are matters involving rebels, the guys who take absolute responsibility are the state. They will be accused and held accountable for failing to provide the security of the citizens, to protect the citizens. My poor UPC on these matters takes the blame on the security in the 80s when the Musevenis were the 100% net causes of insecurity, starting with going to the bush after a democratic election instead of going to court. Obviously, you can go into the semantics of the details, but I'm simply saying that overall, the responsibility for provision and the sense of feeling of security for the citizens of a country is the state. So I'm emphasizing that. Number two, then when you talk about security, we're going to define, is it a sense of fear? Is it security of the property in terms of thieves? That the other day I was telling your program that a senior citizen in this country hold his money, poor man's pension money stolen from a cash machine. That is insecurity. It's the state's responsibility to provide that. That's the role of the police and security services to provide law and order. And talk about security. Karamojong children that I met in the streets of Kampala, many of them almost scary to some people. I could actually see some, without prejudice, it does not matter identities, but actually it's worse for someone who does not look Ugandan, a white guy on a picky, and these kids are going to him, and he's feeling rather scared about his property. That is a sense of insecurity. But number two, the fact that these children have left their homes and they're in Kampala, that's the sense of security. So for security, yes, of course, normally we look at questions to do with life, but there's security of livelihood, there is social security, there's economic security. And then broadly, if you talk about national security is not about Mr. Museveni and the guys who protect him, who cover him, and who whip on behalf of others. National security is a sense of belonging, inclusive for all the citizens of the country. In fact, a minimizing threat to external aggression. But national security is also a sense of a guarantee that a young citizen of this country is able to be born and named Lukaku, goes to primary schools, got a guarantee to go to secondary school, has got a guarantee for a decent education and a guarantee for a job, meaning employment security, and go ahead and get a secure job. And there is a job security where they get the jobs, and they're just not sacked like that. The other day I was discussing on your program, question of employment, where up to 70% of people who are gainfully employed, allegedly, do not have formal employment contracts. That's insecurity. Ironically, the guy who shot the minister, it's not allegedly, shot the minister, allegedly made the claim, is alleged, that part of the concerns was the sense of job insecurity. If in your job there is no guarantee, like I used to work in my last permanent job elsewhere, I knew that on the 20th of the month, my bank account will be okay. And it happened throughout the times. And if 20th of the month falls over a weekend, you will get your money on a Friday. So job security and the sense of that. So all these things in broader context. Am I dragging you too far away? No. Because part of the security question, as I refer to what Mr. Museveni talks about, is a manipulation and exploitation of the mindset of our people to blackmail and ensure that this regime continues in power for as long as they want, while they're busy sacking our nationhood. And I know part of the conversation you and I were having on air was, we don't know who's the Minister for Security. We're just trying to remember. And beyond that, we don't know whether the Minister for Security is under Internal Affairs, or is under Defense. And we don't know whether Security and Defense and President's Office, which budget is which. Of course, you'll possibly give us, as we discuss some of these things going forward, all this bias. So it's about a situation in which talk about security and there is confusion about national polity.
Mr. Chairman,
I can go on and on, but yes.
Let's try to relate the narratives of Mr. Museveni every time he speaks about security vis-a-vis what is the reality on ground.
I was coming. That's why I went around very deliberately to broaden the context of security. Yeah. So security is not is about necessarily whether or not there's some funny soldier who's able to come and whip you at a particular corner of the road. No. It must also include a guarantee that you hold your phone and nobody comes, no funny individual comes and snatches it. Mr. Museveni has not provided that. Security does not include a possibility, the fact that when you go to the petrol station, you're going to fill in your gases. You realize that since Mr. Museveni came in, this thing called security has now been so liberalized that we don't know who have guns in this country and who don't. So just let's confine ourselves to the question of gun armaments. But most of the security, most of the police officers, and these are the most respected and the most authoritative law enforcement officers, people, so police, most of them didn't have guns. They carry batons, just like some police officers still across in Kenya do that. So Ugandans, lest you forget, you're being abused, you're being blackmailed, and it's all at your money, meaning we're spending monies unnecessarily, meaning living in fear, a sense of insecurity.
Well, thank you so much.
And that fear is the broadest sense, where there's economic security, as I said, social security, political security, in this case, perhaps security in the broader sense called military security around your life and all this kind of stuff. So that was not the case. But then number two, I'll just make it very quickly. Yeah. Then after that, talk about where do armed police, where are their limitations? Where are soldiers? Where are the soldiers in the barracks? How many of them are in the streets? When do soldiers come to the streets of town? When there's a demonstration, when young Chagulanyi, who else is going to the streets in Kololo? Do you bring soldiers? Absolutely not. Soldiers are supposed to stay in the barracks and, of course, come and have fun, whatever, but it's not their job. Provision of day-to-day law and order is the responsibility of the police. Now, the soldiers, different groupings. 2, different groupings of the police. 3, there's LDUs. 4, now security agencies, companies, are so liberalized that everybody, including Boda, has a gun. Now, people are guarding homes as a gun. And Mr. Museveni says it's brought for us peace and security in our republic. I had visitors from a major nation visiting me a few weeks ago. And people couldn't believe that all of us live in gated homes with funny fences. And they found it actually absolutely strange. Now, these are people from major nations, multi-billionaires in Ugandan shillings. So what is it that you're so much protecting and guarding on a water? Now, if that is security, then I think we need to have fresh definition from Oxford English Learners Dictionary of Advanced English, specifically for security, for confined for the Republic of Uganda. In Uganda, it's defined as that.
Thank you so much. Well, I want to bring in Mr. Mukaaku. Mr. Museveni has always told us how he has handled the question of security. But much as he keeps on telling us that, the reality on the ground is totally different. We have guns in wrong hands, or the guns are just being misused. And then, when you look at the incidents that have just happened last week, this comes in after time we had the Bijambia, remember? The Bijambia, over 50 people lost their lives. And then just a few months back, there is one sheikh who was killed in Sanji. When his kids are watching, he was shot dead there and then. You know, what do all these incidents speak about the security in this country?
Well, this is a disturbing topic even to debate.
It's difficult, yeah.
It would be okay if we were debating what we know formally as government institutions with the statutory powers which we know and a constitutional mandate. Unfortunately, Joseph and I and yourself and probably somebody else listening in and trying to check the facts, you may not get this. Simply because Joseph was saying the state, but you can look for the state and you'll never see it. Who is actually managing the state? I know that's the person you're talking. Is he managing the state or the deep state? These are all questions for all of us. Let's say we have a president. That president, the commander-in-chief of what? Of the deep state and its infrastructure, full throttle, or the state that Ugandans know according to their constitution. Here is a president. Take the example of this fight for graft, fight against corruption. The institutions with statutory mandates and power are there. All of a sudden, he creates his. Doing the same, with the same duplication and the same definition of mandates. On his own, and he's not questioned, neither by parliament or anybody who should. And the citizens cannot even raise their voice or tongues. And the other day he created the Nakalema. Now he's talking about another anti-graft by him.
For the investors.
We know the institution of the presidency. And we know the person that is there. Is that presidency mandated to create unilaterally, without any consultation, to create his own departments?
With a budget.
With a budget. And a budget, more or less, not that it consumes a lot, but unclassified. Surplus, I will not call it surplus, of Uganda government revenue. And you will not question. I know how we all labored. When you called me, I tried to labor. What do we call this ministry for security? By all definition, seemingly it is under the president's office. But not like any normal ministry that every minister assists the president. It is under the president's office.
Yeah.
They have a website. It only stops at telling you who the minister is.
Yes, I looked at it.
Nothing else.
In black color.
Who the minister is. You look for what departments are actually under security. The security ministry.
It's a one.
Then all of a sudden, when they show you what they do, here, somewhere they said the ministry of security is a government security, whatever, mandated to ensure security of government, vital installations of the country, missions abroad, and the implementations of the Explosive Act. If you're a member of parliament,
The information
if
is
today
classified as well.
myself and Comrade Joseph were members of parliament, probably heading important committees, how do we make this Ministry of Security?
How do you
to
budget for
account?
it actually?
How do we even budget for them?
Yeah.
But then look at what is in internal affairs. Minister of Internal Affairs is mandated to keep peace, law, and order, understandably. Provide forensic and scientific analytical testing and services. Ensure safe custody, humane treatment, and the rehabilitation of offenders. Right. Provision of safe, secure, and humane custody of prisoners, remands, and convicts. Great. Facilitation and regulation of entry, stay, and exit of persons into and from Uganda. Correct. Coordinate implementation of the Trafficking in Persons Act, issuance of national identity cards. More or less, this is what we knew
It's justifiable anyway.
ever since. But then what about this security?
That's the question. Man.
Then you can find something about the Internal Security Organization, which does the counterintelligence on every other. You can read there. It even has a little bit of more detail than what we have under the Ministry for Security.
Could this be a
Now,
cause for the insecurity we have
That
in the country?
confusion, I've brought it from who are we speaking to here? The manager of our state,
Yeah.
the president, who unilaterally and unconstitutionally creates departments that we don't know of, and even Parliament goes ahead to pass not just the personnel that are going to head this, but also the budgets. And again, when it comes to the budgets, they tell them one for security, what do we call it? This common word.
The classified.
Classified. Classified. One for defense, a lot of it classified. And in defense, we also have CMI, you know that. Then, when you look at the people who play a role in these departments, even the what we call the SFC, you know the SFC? Which is an army within an army, not commanded by Mbadi.
Yeah, yeah.
You know it? When you look, they all wear military uniforms. You know, Uganda has the widest range of military uniforms, all coded. But they all ISO same uniforms. Those who must be commanded by now Jim Muhwezi, same uniforms. When can we separate who does what, who does not?
Mr. Mukaaku.
Then leave alone that. There is another one. Have you heard of the Reserve Army?
Yes.
Have you heard of it?
Yes.
Who's in charge?
Who is in charge?
I last knew when I think the one in charge was it Salim? But that was then, some time back.
Has he ever been changed?
I don't know.
So he's still the man in charge.
I don't know.
But the other day, on Labor Day, those who belong to Saracen and all these, who are supposed to be part of the Reserve Army, plus those they
Actually,
call
veterans.
the Uganda veterans.
Yes.
Veterans. They were saying they have not been paid. They are always called upon to guard financial institutions and the like. No pay, no what. And they were saying, how can we protect the country's finance
When we are
without
not
us
paid?
being paid? Have you seen the type of caliber of guns they have? The caliber of guns. More sophisticated than the AK. Although at times AK is efficient and under any circumstances. More sophisticated than the AK.
Mr. Mukaaku.
And who owns this? Salim Saleh, Mama, the in-laws, and all these. Everyone has, even the daughters, they have. Now, when you have all these guns floating and all these uniforms floating, you are going to get into the scenario that you've just depicted here. But one interesting, very interesting thing before I said, the most recent one, nobody's even querying. Number one, the type of caliber guns these people use, the type of motorbikes that have been used, and they have been seen even on cameras. Those are not usual border. They are not owned by anybody. Neither our bikers, the bikers we have, the private bikers, do have them. They are special bikers, but we have seen them in the hands of those who manage our state. We can name them if you want. Nobody questions them. And when they use them, you see, that type of caliber of gun to be used with somebody on a border or behind a border facing the other side.
You must be very professional.
Highly, not just 1 year, 2, 4. These are presidential protection, special units that can do that. If not, trained in a different way. No Ugandan has the capacity to go out, not Ochieno, can take anybody, even one like this, to train such a guy and bring him
No
here.
average Ugandan. Okay.
No average Ugandan.
Okay.
No average Ugandan.
Yeah.
Because they are like military engineers. You can't. I can't train a military engineer. How expensive would it be? And I have to ask a country to help me do so. So, and who has been in charge of this country for 40 years now? There must be somebody. Lastly, what is all about this Chanja, Ntinda Chanja axis? We have to ask ourselves.
Even the bombs we had
Katumba Wamala,
exploded in...
Felix Kawesi, the prosecutor,
John Kagezi.
The recent bombs which were now alleged to be ADF.
Yeah.
There are a number of people.
Chair Bakari Chiwewa was also shot.
There are a number of people in that area. If you brought a fairly averagely specialized force to investigate, by now they would have zeroed down on something.
Thank you so much.
So these are interesting questions, comrade. But again, the issue of security, whether we have people who are actually managing our security or who have created their own institutions behind the former state institutions to try and cause mayhem and prepare for what we see in Sudan today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mukaaku. Well, that was, I like the background you gave us, especially talking about the confusion about the ministries, and even the website for the security ministry itself is I wanted to use the word disorganized, but it's kind of polite. It's in that state anyway. Now, Mr. Ochieno, Mr. Mukaaku is giving us a background that first of all, there is a confusion within the security itself. We are in times where you cannot tell who is a policeman, you cannot tell who is a military man, you cannot tell who is who.
Even as he comes, even within the Ministry of Defense, which handles the most sophisticated of our weapons and the defense equipment and infrastructure and information, you have armies within an army. There is an army for the Twitter General, which goes even to Congo and says, we are here.
Under the siege operation. The point I'm trying to bring here, Mr. Ochieno, before you come in, is trying to paint a picture that, one, there is a confusion within the security itself.
We did not consult in this conversation from my intro and what he said. We did not.
Yeah, sure.
But it's just a confirmation of a perfect Uganda. But carry on.
Well, there is a confusion. You do not know who is in charge of what. You do not know. You can see, if you see a policeman, you cannot actually, it's not enough to conclude that he's a policeman.
No.
By mere look at the uniform. There is so many. Look at even the people who have been manning our police forces and all that. You know, it's a mixture of so many things you cannot tell. Now, could it be that the confusion within there, that they have created themselves that havoc? You don't know who is in charge of what. Could it be a green light to the insecurity we're experiencing in the country?
No, they didn't create it. I think what my brother Sam is saying is that this was done by design by the commander-in-chief. Yes, designed by the commander-in-chief. And the profilation of the security industry, as I was saying at the beginning, again, is deliberate. And the profilation of guns is deliberate. I think to create not only a deliberate police state, but also to push in the mindset of Ugandans, including my young, beautiful camera lady here, for them to be born, reach 6, start primary school, go to secondary school, graduate, get jobs here, and know that they're at the mercy of some kind of core establishment. Who are you who dare say or do what beyond a certain limit? I am privileged by not my Jesus, by some special God for me to be alive. And by the way, actually, including when I go down the road and my phone is snatched, it's just those funny guys. Mr. Big Boss and his very, profilated teams do a lot of work. You can see them everywhere. It's just some silly, bad, desperate guy who steals my phone. But beyond that...
By the way, where did the 1 million crime presenters...
Crime preventers.
No, for me, I know them as crime presenters
Yes.
because they used to do so. you learn
Yes.
something according to what they do. Where did they go?
Yeah.
They were
I think
trained,
the mission ended in after the
militarily
elections.
trained,
Yes.
and they're nowhere. Where are our LDUs?
Very, very
Because they told every village to produce.
very emphatically presented, and indeed, where did all the CCTV cameras go, all the security cameras for which we guaranteed that they will be in every part of Kampala, and huge amount of monies were released for them. But we are not legislators. But also, so I was saying that I have heard from a number of friends in the security agencies who, in confidence, will tell you how concerned they are by some of the things that Sam is raising, meaning, therefore, that an army within an army, a police within an army, and then when the issues that you raise, matters of investigation, raise their heads, you don't know who is leading on it, just like the corruption thing. You don't know who's leading on it, and you don't know who's responsible. So possibly, therefore, it means also that maybe incidents like these unfortunate tragic events, things happen, and even if they're possibly related to the related agencies, you possibly don't know. Some of the guys in the agencies have no clue.
Yeah.
And then possibly then gets worse if it happens to be some terrible Ugandans, because we will have people who then go ahead and end people's lives. Meaning, even if some opportunistic criminal, individuals in this country, and those are always everywhere, in every other country, the security forces, with the authority and mandate that we're saying at the beginning, do not have the capacity, because you don't know which one. You don't know whether it's a police, you don't know whether it's a basic local LDU or local ISO. These days they have those funny guys called ISO, including my village. You know what I'm trying to say? Or it is, in this case, a local police detective, or is this somebody from military intelligence, or is it who basically is responsible for not only investigating but establishing this? So these are some of the issues. So these things are deliberate, and as I say, security industry, as, if you like, the guarantor of Mr. Museveni's longevity and the regime, is a total perfection that unfortunately is leading us towards a direction which is becoming a bit concerning. For the first time in the last 1 week, I got a little concerned about the extremes, about possibilities of how bad situations are and how bad situations can be in this country. And so perhaps at this stage, it's just my appeal to Mr. Museveni at this stage to maybe wake up. Because I was thinking the other day, I was driving on the day of Tuesday, on the Entebbe Express Highway, and I passed through many of these cars of theirs that they steal money from us, these cars with their escorts. So many ministerial things coming from Entebbe. It was after their budget, their cabinet thing. By the way, those guys are very expensive. These ministers, they're like a whole country, and they're nearly at 81, a lot. The ministry is actually like a whole country. Very expensive for us, that's by the way. But anyway, and they've got so many of the security guards over there, but again, too many. But you realize, therefore, that, the size of your guard is no guarantee to your security. So just some food for thought for you. I've always said this, by the way, just for the benefit of your of your viewers, and for those who may not have read some of the things I've written before. I've actually written that once upon a time in 1984, when Mr. Museveni was in the bush and they used to come here and throw grenades and bombs in the streets of Kampala, I was privileged, as I was climbing up Akasha Avenue about 7 o'clock in the evening, to experience Obote in 2 Mercedes-Benz cars on his way back to his home in Kololo. And there was no lead car. About 7 o'clock, just about to get dark. 2 Mercedes-Benz cars. He was in the one in the rear. There is no other vehicle coming from, possibly could have been President's office, maybe in Kololo, wherever, in Nakasero, going to his home in Kololo. I think early 85 actually, early 85, because I think I was waiting for my A-level result. So that means, and Museveni was in the bush and they already surrounding Kampala. So there is something about this NRA and obsession with security which I have no clue about. But I would suggest that as we discuss security, let's not milden it. I would say that maybe this is a time for a national reflection beyond Mr. Museveni. As I said, that there's no guarantee that having an armed person by you or at your gate is the answer. And I think ordinary citizens will also need to say we need to begin to quickly deconstruct security and security industry in this country, just like we need to deconstruct the number of health centers and pharmacies around Kampala. We need to ensure, going back to the security thing, to begin to ask ourselves, why is it that we now have armed people, including in a supermarket, and we claim we've brought in security? And why is it that it's so much that even a local legislator, a member of parliament these days moves with guards or as protectors? And why some of those people are actually not police officers, but people armed in police, and we claim that Mr. Museveni has brought security in this country? We need to be able to have that conversation.
Mr. Museveni claims
himself. Quick conversation, a quick observation. A commitment from Uganda People's Congress of the Future, for which I'm a party to, is that these things about our livelihood, our security, it must stop with Museveni. That a future government in this country, hopefully a future UPC government, must guarantee that we very quickly regulate armaments and guns and arms, and ensure that there's a security industry, people who are making monies over SSEM in neither here nor there, that we need to be able to review these things. That surely this is not the world, because it takes us to what the Americas of this world are. Sam and I are privileged to have lived in reluctantly, as in UK in my case, it's not easy to see a gun. It's not easy to see guns. Quite discomforting, actually, to see even an armed response officer, even if they're actually quite decent. And many of these things happened even much more recently, post 9/11. Before then, by the way, in the UK, including today, when there is a firearm incident, yeah, and if a police officer discharges a firearm, there is a formal investigation.
You must account.
There is a formal investigation of why firearms was. However apparent it is, it must be investigated, and there's a body that deals with it. Now, I have told Ugandans that we also need to reach a stage in which, any time in which there is a death of a Ugandan, that death must be certified by a doctor, whatever the circumstance. And unless it's certified, such a person is not buried. And number 2, just like every death must be, in this case, registered as people born. I am going somewhere. I know I'm taking a bit of your time. I'm going somewhere. I think it is at that stage when Ugandan citizens will begin to value, that all of us begin to value lives, that nobody dies anyhow, regardless. I am bringing you back. You hinted at Kaira. How cheek that Andrew Latrakama Kaira could die in 1987, isn't it? Yeah. I was still a student at Makerere University. I have gone around the world. That's 1 year after Museveni came to power. I've gone around the world. Museveni is now going to be in power for 40 years. And no formal conclusion. Granted, they will tell you about Scotland and other things. I am saying, Sam, that this country, with whatever is going at the moment, we need to review this conversation and extend it beyond Mr. Museveni. And I want to commit my good friends in NUP, my good friends in FDC, my good friends in DP, my good friends in other political parties, that this must become a national political leadership conversation, that we have had enough, and there must be leadership by all of us to ensure that we begin to agree that perhaps, like Ochieno already committed to a national truth and reconciliation, because every time I talk about some of these, people dump some of these things on UPC, for which I'm quite happy to have conversations about anyway, that we begin to commit that never again should a Ugandan die, whatever the circumstance, and that death is not resolved.
It's a normal.
It's not
it remains a normal.
That death is not resolved. That never. Number 1. And that number 2, not only do we have a list of missing persons in this country, but people who die, who disappear, and are missing must be accounted for. And we must have that, and the police must have that record. Now, this is a commitment from Uganda People's Congress, and I'm going to run with this thing.
Thank you.
Finally, shamefully, my era MP, James Ocholas, remains, without a man killed in 1972, remains unaccounted for. These are things that we should be focusing on, the police should be focusing on. Now, for this to happen, and as I said, in the last week, a few days, Ugandans die, you are listening here, people die, and sometimes Mr. Museveni comes and grandstands and says these guys are going to be found and we're going to be held to account. Because you know what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that in as long as these things happen, and maybe some silly criminals in the streets of particular corners of Uganda, who are trigger happy, no, they will go ahead and do it and get away with it. They may not even be NRA. They may not even be associated with the NRA. So if there is a situation in which there are some criminals, and they may not even be Ugandans, that they come and hang into this Republic of Uganda, they know they're going to end the life of a Ugandan, and it's going to be neither here nor there. So assuming that none of these things are associated with funny people in politics, then we are simply saying that the state is still failing, and we need to make sure that we mainstream this thing so that matters of death in Uganda, we make sure that whatever deaths they're counting, those plus others, that if they're unresolved, they remain on the high table of unresolved matters, whoever they are.
Thank you so much. Well, Mr. Mukaaku, I want to bring you in here. There are two issues here. One, both of you seem to agree that the question of insecurity seems to be deliberate.
All the people of Uganda seem to agree, except those who have captured the state.
Okay, thank you. Now, my question is, the question of the deliberacy in this, the whole question being deliberate, should it be from the commander-in-chief or those who are given peripheral powers to handle the security detail? Then secondly, one other thing I also want to, is the question of security and dealing with it right now, is it too huge for Mr. Museveni? Maybe that will help us to fully understand whether the killings are state instigated or it is an accidental killings or wrong elements we have in guns.
Repeat the last question.
The last question is the security question, looking at whatever is happening currently in this country, is it too big for Mr. Museveni to handle? Or yes, is it too big for Mr. Museveni? Let me leave it at that.
Great.
Is it too big for Mr. Museveni to deal with?
Is it tired?
Is it hard for him?
I won't go direct to your questions. There's something he mentioned. What do we have to do about the drug shops and pharmacies, pharmaceutical?
Yeah.
What did you say?
I think there are too many.
We have to do something.
Yeah.
You were talking about in Kampala or Uganda?
I was talking generally in Uganda, but in terms of
there's
many almost.
Before we even go there, we need to start with those ones in Mulago.
All right. There's a powerful one there.
Which have proliferated on the land procured by Idi Amin and Obote.
There you go. Yeah.
But they are now private.
To certain
some of them called fast pharmacies, and the indicative fast pharmacies. You ask, who is the owner? Who is running? And then Mulago Medical Superintendent and the administration. How are they linked?
Yeah.
But there was a proposal actually to remove all of them.
You know where there was a landing site, which these days has been used by footballers and the like. Yeah. But that was a special landing site for even when it is a helicopter or whatever.
It's actually not there
now. It has been turned into something else.
Yes. Yeah. Past there a few days.
It is now being has already been privatized,
yes.
But Ugandans don't want to know, maybe, or those who are
some actually.
They actually call it the Mulago pitch.
Yeah.
Now they use the Ebola thing to try and convert it. Now it is private land, and it's going to have pharmacies, and it's going to have all this. We need to do something about it.
Yeah.
You go to Makerere University.
Uganda seems to wake up.
Yeah, you go to Makerere University, land which was donated by a private person to be used for public. And now you find most of the land taken. taken like that and privatized.
Let's get back to security.
Anyway, because he interested me.
Yeah.
The same with security.
But they're linked anyway, in a particular way.
The same with security. The same with everything you can think of that must be managed by those public officers in the name of government of Uganda and for the state of Uganda.
And in the interest of the people of Uganda.
In the interest of the people of Uganda. Idi Amin, and this is all, unfortunately, the question of security is linked with our fundamental human freedoms and rights and dignity. And when he says, let our UPCs, our DPs start now to think about, and to put it, that let those questions hang in there, I'm sure he's meaning after the transition, because now we just can't work within our institutions to have these things, even to make policy. We can't work. He can't work within the UPC to make that policy. He can carry it as an individual, a group of people, but not UPC. Because the institutions have been captured. Left and right, think about them, whether they are arms of government, whether they are democratic institutions, would be democratic institutions, whether it is civil society space is under attack, and all the civil society has been captured under ISO, which now is we are talking about. They are the ones to allow which NGO, which CBO, which whatever to know how much money, even when there are people out there who are willing to ensure that civil society works as civil society. The space is under attack. The democratic space is under attack. Human rights space and freedoms is under attack. Everything, we have lost it. So we must go to another island. And that's why I support Dr. Chiza Besigye and comrades. We need to go to another island in order to get back our country. Our country is gone. Our institutions are gone. Our bureaucratic infrastructure is gone. Even our voices have been captured. Even the fourth estate is no longer ours. So, let me go to what Idi Amin used to say, like it is now and beyond. I think we used to ridicule Idi Amin, now it is. He is somewhere laughing and saying, look, they didn't know that you would get somebody worse or a group worse. He used to say, you might have the freedom to speak like we are having here, but after. Now when you look at the Ichuli things, now you know. Yeah? And the people currently, like my friend Norman was saying, that the problem we have today is that the people know that the Ugandans, the citizens, and probably non-citizens, are right to be angered by some of these things. But still what they don't, about the human rights violation, about denial, but what they don't seem to understand is that it is the right of the citizens to look in the eyes of these people and say, they think it is their right to do whatever they want. So that's impunity.
That's right. Yeah.
Your questions. The first question was that, you see, I want to tell you, state capture, like treason. You can't be convicted of of treason single-handedly. You must be a group, probably widespread, but with the same DNA and conspiracy to commit treason. When you hear somebody being convicted of treason and he was alone, or they are two, that's not, you know there was a mistrial under our laws. It is even worse with the state capture. Whether it's President Museveni or anybody working in concert.
It's conspiracy.
It's conspiracy. There are people who set out to cultivate and to execute, now to completion, what we see today as state capture. It cannot be done by simply one person. Some even participate in planning this, but again they want to play as though they are not, but eventually it catches up with them. Many times, President Museveni said, I think,
The weevils.
That there are weevils in the police, in the army. I said that people are sabotaging him. Who are these ones? Who are these ones? You get the intelligence briefs. He is paid to sit and discern our intelligence and get these reports, intelligence reports, every morning, every evening. He has no excuse whatsoever as head of state and the commander-in-chief. Why is he not doing the right thing? Sometimes, even when he gets people to help him, they are paid. The money is there.
Yeah.
It's not like Joseph or yourself or myself. So, those who have committed state capture, it's not just an individual or two people. It's a cabal.
It's a cabal.
And that cabal is the one that now we call the deep state. Your second question, is it too big or huge? It's linked.
Yeah, if it's conspiracy, then it's...
When I commit treason to take over, like Museveni committed treason on the then government of Dr. Milton Obote, the UPC government. He did it. So you are not going to ask, is it now, is the problem too huge on President Museveni? No, it was huge on all those who committed to. So I don't ask yourself the question, is this now too big a question?
Really action by design.
It's going on, it's by design.
Yeah.
It's a job to be accomplished. It's about to be accomplished. Now we are talking about succession instead of talking about transition. Because when government systems fail and are collapsing, we shouldn't be talking about maintaining and continuing that situation. But look, those who claim to be the standby generators and all the others in those projects are talking about continuity. Continuity of what? Of killing people?
And
continuity of corruption at the level we are? Continuity of misappropriation? Continuity of getting our priorities wrong? We need a transition where every Uganda, because this country is for Ugandans, but then we are talking about a sovereign. One sovereign, second in line, the brother, and then the son, third in line, just like what we had yesterday in Great Britain. That's what they want us to see. But if they want it to be that, a Savagavi, and then the second line, and the other one, let's debate it and have a sovereign in that nature of a Savagavi that we can debate and know, and also debunk the excesses of. And then we move forward as a country which has...
and then we can agree, we can have a national Luchiko. But just 30 seconds if you don't mind. It's very interesting what Sam says.
Yeah.
I saw again in the media, allegedly, that young Mr. Muhoozi gave several hundred animals as a promise restocking in Acholi.
255 heads of cattle.
And I was wondering, is Mr. Museveni's son, but is that his money?
I'm going to request we start from that same conversation when we break off.
Sure.
Well, for our viewers, this is the Hotline Show, and we're trying to look at assessing the security within this country. It is so sad when we see our friends, our brothers, our sisters, our colleagues, our friends, losing lives in such a manner when something can be really done to see that their lives are saved. Well, it's the Hotline Show, and my name is Abdul Latif. We will be breaking off so shortly, and of course, when we return, the Hotline Show will continue.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can. Although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704111720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Well, welcome back from that short break, and now the hotline show still continues. Well, in this second hour, I'll be going through some of the comments that have been coming through, but I think let's keep them coming, let's keep them flowing. I'll be able to go through them as we proceed. Well, Uganda right now has the opposition leadership, and the National Unity Platform is leading the opposition in this country. Just like we had the Forum for Democratic Change, we had the Democratic Party, and so the question here is, when we look at the question of liberating this country, much as we talk of liberation, there are those who believe the country has already been liberated. But when we try to assess the opposition leadership, I'm using the word leadership deliberately because we don't want to sound like we are pinning a particular group or a particular individual. But when you talk about the leadership, we expect a lot to happen right from the parliament. I am very happy that for the very first time, the opposition leadership came up with an alternative budget, different from the minority, budget report. But they came up with a minority budget, an alternative budget. And of course, we expect to see so many things taking shape in that very direction. But before we get there, you were talking about something. You asked about the promises that were made by the first son, and now he went ahead. I think they were delivered, 2-3 days back. They were deliverables. I think 2-3 days back.
Yes.
Maybe I want to give you more time.
And indeed, it's possibly just linked, I thank you, it's just linked to the topic that we're concluding, which is about security, state capture, as my brother would also try and add, but perhaps maybe as a preset for the discussions about not only position but political leadership.
Yeah.
Because if then that's part of the question in which we have a general, one of three generals in a family, one of three generals in a family. He's a serving army officer. He's doing the rounds around town, around the country, which no other soldier is allowed and would be allowed to do. We know how some other generals got whipped, when they merely wanted to leave the army. And then three, he's making political statements. The other day, he's even leading a political delegation in which my good brother and minister walks behind, two ministers actually, walking behind this guy, a military guy. And I'm saying, where is protocol and what precedents are we setting in the dire mess of the nation state called the Republic of Uganda? I find it completely unacceptable. But then, is this personal money? Is it money from the army? Is it money from president's office? And if it's money from president's office, meaning from daddy, if it's money from daddy, that's our money. If that's our money, and if it's our money, is that how we disperse monies and do restocking of, lost items come from the office of the president? Or do these things go through local government or perhaps respective ministries, considering the fact that a bunch of thieves went ahead and thieved, they went ahead and stole iron sheets. Although now we've seen just a few of them, thieves, you talk about security. When we talk about security, thievery is one of them, isn't it? So we find thieves who steal Karamoja iron sheets. We didn't talk about them stealing Karamoja goats. We didn't talk about them stealing Karamoja monies in billions, because the Karamoja thing has got those strands. Money, goats, families were supposed to get up to 16 goats per household. None of them got 16. Allegedly, a few of them only got 5. Some of those were sick goats. So this NRA regime is such a heartless military regime that is so shameless that maybe just like my brother Mukaaku says, we just pray that one time Jesus reigns through the Holy Spirit, comes down to the sky.
Could the NRM be doing a continuity of the UPC? Because you equally failed to elevate the status and well-being of those people. I feel absolutely offended that you could relate and link UPC with NRA. But for the purposes of the good conversation that we continue, I reserve that I will not respond. But you know as well as Mr. Museveni, anybody sensible in this country who's lived in this country for 40 years, and if there is anybody who's lived in this country for 40 years and can want to compare NRA with Mr. Museveni's UPC with Museveni's NRA, those guys need to go close to Lozira, that place called in Butabika. To the extent that, if I may say so, actually, I didn't want to say this. To the extent that on my way here, at Mukwano, I saw this railway things that I cry about all the time after seeing the Karamoja girls and crying. I saw a rail platform, those slippers that some of these guys have stolen and take whatever. It reads Workington 1973. And I went straight into my mind and said, oh, so these slippers were being refurbished in 1973. That's 2 years after Obote. That's a mean. Yeah. Meaning that even a mean was maintaining the railways that were built. Even a mean, go to Mukono Road, was maintaining the rails that were built. And this bunch of NRA thieves, they failed. Not only fail, they break them. The railways that we extended, they break them, so there are no trains, there are no buses, there are no hospitals, there are no guarantees, there are no schools. So let's go and talk in the context of security. That's economic and social security. So now the comparisons are such that even a mean passes excellent high marks if you compare them with the NRA. That's how bad the situation is. But back to this guy. To the extent that you can see that there is talking of livestock, to be done by a serving military officer. What is that job? Is this something? He's actually the presidential advisor on special operations, something like that.
But whatever
I don't know the link.
And even if it was presidential advisor on poverty alleviation, It's not their job. Just like it's not the job, by the way, of members of parliament to carry Mabati. It's not the job of ministers to carry Mabati, taking them to Karamoja, and then they reach Nagongara and they see Ochieno. Thankfully, I don't need them in my home. My homes are well done. Thank you, Jesus. And say, okay, we leave one for Ochieno, and then we take another for Kasaija. Even if Kasaija receives his in a miraculous way. No. So it's actually shambles. But no, the reason why I was saying this, so if then that's what's happening, why is Mr. Museveni's son doing this? Is that the political mess you're talking about that we're going to be discussing opposition, and I'm happy, but this is what's happening in the national body polity, that more politics has been so scandalized and so desecrated, like Sir Edward talks about in his book, The Desecration of My Kingdom. Has NRM desecrated our republic so much? That is those shambles. It is shocking. But anyway, stock the animals in Acholi. We know who ate the Acholi cattle. Stock them. We know who ate them. But anyway, stock those cattle. It is our money anyway. Maybe next time go and stock the Karamoja Mabatis, and let's talk the Republic of Uganda, including the railways where? In Mukwano. So that next time on my way to these studios, to this studio, oh, Tororo, I suffer. Don't take me down there. Let's discuss the state of the political policy of this country, including the political opposition, and we see how Mr. Museveni's opposition is going to be 40 years after he falls.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Ochieno. Actually, Mr. Ochieno ushers us into another conversation. Before
he ushers you in there, I would just beg for 4 minutes, just, or 3.
Please.
To buttress the point he was making. Not long ago, I came here, and how you asked me about his birthdays, the Twitter general, and I was frank to you that the cows I saw being distributed and being slaughtered on each and every of those birthdays were these high-humped, short-horned, or no horns, and they normally like weigh. Zebu, yeah? They normally don't weigh more than 150 kilograms. We know where those animals come from, don't you?
I don't.
Even if we still have, if we still teach our primary children the way we used to be taught.
Yeah, longhorn.
Longhorns come from this region.
Which type of cows come from the other end? Which one comes from? But these are Karamoja cows, which are predominantly in Lango, Teso, and Karamoja corridor, and maybe Sebei.
And that's breaking news.
Actually, before you brought in that same statement, I wanted to say that just in addition to what he said, you know, there are incidents in politics where you create an insurgence, you come and offer a solution.
Yeah.
And now it is the same thing you're trying to bring up.
Now, in addition to what he said, you see, I have been telling you that if we still had a state, you see, we accept many countries will suffer from what we call misrule, dictatorship, socio-economic plunder, corruption. But if a state has been captured and you have this phenomenon going on, you can't correct it. Because you think the state can handle, and the state institutions will handle, but they are not there. They've been taken away by somebody. So you live in an island where you are basically lying to yourself that you can handle when somebody else has the powers to handle. I won't take you too much in the philosophy of creating what somebody called Leviathan, the political philosophy of statehood, creating a state. Why must we have a state? A disinterested institution which works for everyone. Here we don't have any. You can talk about, for example, during Obote time, there was some corruption. There was some, but we still had the state. It had not been captured. Even those who attempted to, like the late General Ojok, he could get the heat from within the institution of parliament or elsewhere. We still had, by and large, the institution of something called the mega institution called the state. And the government Government might have been weak, might have been whatever, but it was there. Here we don't have. This is what I want to emphasize. We don't have this today. And in addition to that, so you have now dictatorship times. That's why now he has told you Idi Amin measures higher than what we go to Mulago, for example. See what's happening in Mulago. I've just given you an example. Yesterday was Labor Day. What did we meet on Labor Day, this Labor Day, which is now throwing up the extermination, the assassination of a minister and the killing of all these other people and the death of a soldier and leaving the family, the two families, to languish like they have no body. One, we have poverty beyond repair. They tell you that today, 85% basically of Ugandans, because Uganda is a young population, are unemployed. I don't know whether when we talk about unemployment, people understand what it is. And even now, the remaining 15%, which is not in gainful employment, is either underemployed or not in gainful employment. They are full employed, but not gainful employed. They work for survival. Today...
No, the jobs they're doing are not commensurate with their qualifications.
Exploitation. And the suppression of labor rights and relations is beyond repair. We have ultra-nepotism. You can only get a job if you are Narubega or Namatov, because I am Rubega in charge. We didn't see that. You could see it a little bit. But even then it was balanced. I remember here in Kampala, we used to have, for example, KCC. Predominantly, you could see a lot of Basoga in that. A lot of Basoga, because some of them. But when you go to special forces, then you see a lot of Itesots. Not even Lanyis, but Itesots. Then you go to the... So it was like balancing. But here, every sector, you must have somebody from Roshere to control it, and control the finance, and control this. This is not really... When the job insecurity we have today, if you are not part of them, every time you must watch your back. But for them, they may not even turn up in the office for ages. Nobody will blame them. Now look at the presidential advisor. When he was commander land forces, he was not even there. But he was the one in charge. And now he's the presidential advisor. How on earth could he not be checked by the institutions that are, when you bribe a whole region that I'm restocking, you are restocking as who? That's corruption in the first instance. We are now looking for the Nandutus. Why don't we go for this one? Where did he get that money? If he got that money, is he not bribing our institutions in that particular area? We have a restocking institution. We have all these other institutions, including the Myoga, the whatever. What organization is he serving? This is one of the most corrupt army leader that we have, who claims to be a military leader. And he must...
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Listen to him because they say he's not UPC. Can you imagine?
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
And we are laboring.
Well, we do apologize for that that hiccup we experienced, and we have to continue with the conversation here. Before we express that, Mr. Mukaaku was trying to bring out the issues on how the state has been captured, and of course questioning how the first son, comes up to restock
The issue of the Labor Day.
to restock, and then also talk about the Labor Day issues and all that. So many questions with, of course, no answers at the time. But again, that same discussion brings us into something both of you are talking about. In this country, we have the opposition leadership. We actually have 29, right now there are 26 registered political parties. And of these, 6 or 7, they're represented in parliament. And one of the reasons we actually, as a country, there is a recognition of that office of the opposition leadership is because we expect to have alternative policies and also maybe views that resonate with the public on many issues. For instance, we're in a country, we are seeing a serving general, moving the whole country, trying to sell his political agenda, while he's still a serving army officer. But we have not had even a serious statement coming up from the opposition leadership and maybe members of parliament, from the other side of the government, trying to condemn this or make very serious statements about this. Could this also indicate that there is a problem within the governments in waiting within this country? I think I want to bring that to Mr. Ochieno.
I think it's an important point. I can tell you as a leader in UPC, I have raised this matter again and again and again, deliberately and formally in my official capacity from my offices. I have also said that opposition leaders for other political organizations, including some of my other colleagues in UPC who claim names and leadership in the party, have not made their positions clear on this matter. So you're absolutely right that I think thus far, the fact that the idea of a Muhoozi project has been a creeping thing since the exile of David Tinyefunza, aka other names, several years ago, is possibly an indictment on the state of the citizenry, which I think some was trying to insinuate much earlier, that we have challenges as a country in terms of our own quality of citizenship. But when it comes to democratic opposition leadership, I'm actually quite surprised that has been let in, but maybe associated with the question of fear that we were insinuating much earlier, that in this country there appear to be that there are certain issues that leaders don't want to touch because they don't want to go there. And if you don't want to go there and you represent a political position, then you are as much a traitor and a sellout as you were, in this case, a traitor to the citizenry of this country. So, indeed, you're right that if there is possibly one of the things, and I've raised this thing, as a matter of fact, with the young people, particularly with whom I talk, including the person who brought me here today, that look, you are 28 and somebody has ruled this country for 40 years, illegitimately, imposed himself, a reject from Mbarara. He rules this country for 40 years. And rules it rather badly, kills all the institutions and kills all the systems, and abuses the hospitals, the schools, the roads, the structures, the factories, and the jobs and the possibilities and the grassroots systems that we create for this country, kills the national unity and cohesion, pumps tribalism and sectionalism and corruption in our country, that did not exist. And, 10 years before you were born, he came to power, yeah? Then your parents determined that you were born. And then you begin to crawl, you walk, you begin to whistle, talk, start junior school, primary school, secondary school, begin to date, and now you are able to have your own home. In this case, this young man told me he's got a child who is 6. And you are not jealous that somebody's son, the same person who's ruling you, wants to let go the power and privilege of state, to his son. And what about you? And you boast that you was a man, you even managed to boast possibly about 10 years ago to convince somebody's daughter that you also a man in the Republic of Uganda. What cheek, what nonsense. No, I challenge young Ugandans continuously, male and female. And for me, who would desire that in a future in which I am president of Uganda People's Congress and beyond that whoever replaces me is a female president. So where then are the young, emergent, beautiful, intelligent Ugandan women? So no, absolutely this is a legitimate subject. And I am saying this because 2.5 years ago, Sam, as I got slightly much more involved in some of the Kampala conversations, including preparing for my leadership campaigns and going around the country for Uganda People's Congress, I remember meeting colleagues in civil society organizations and campaign groups, including political organizations. And I also remember, for the record, having conversations with friends of mine and colleagues in government, including friends in different kind of institutions, including security. And some of those friends, some of them might hear, they were saying, no, Joseph, that cannot happen. Mr. Museveni's son cannot take, we will not allow. I know some senior person who said, we will not allow, because that person is just down, I can't mention their names. We will not allow. Then fast forward, they call it creeping, usurpation of power. Now it's a formality that there is a project now. Very important. The other day, Mr. Museveni, after his son had led a delegation to Rwanda that included senior guys who were basically bag carriers to this guy to go and meet Mr. Kagame, comes back, and for the first time, he hosts a team of his son's team at State House, meaning Republic House. At our money is our expense, of course, State House in Tebes. That's our Republic House, address number 1 in the Republic, our money, okay? So he hosts his son plus these people. And as you're absolutely right, nobody says anything. It is extraordinary. Granted, I know that some of the political organizations, for some of the things that Sam has suggested, our voices have been curtailed. We do not have sufficient capacity to engage, but
capacity
to take a position, I'll explain that, but to take a position on a serving military officer, NRM military officer doing this, and a son of a president who wants to turn the republic into a monarchy, and for Mr. Museveni, who taunted my president, Dr. Obote, rest in peace, sir. Taunted Dr. Obote, that Obote stayed in power for too long and claimed Northerners, Obote and Amin, had been in power for too long. Obote was in power for 12 years, including, two times 12 years and Amin 9 years. So meaning plus the interim administrations, just about 24 years since independence. So Mr. Museveni is going double combination of all that. So what cheek that this guy does it and for 40 years he continues. It's absolutely unacceptable. But don't leave it to political parties. Where are the average Ugandan youth? Where is your beautiful camera lady? I saw her the other day earlier, she was preparing. She's a young person who's possibly looking under 30. How comes that she's insufficiently unambitious, that she does not want to be, not the first lady, of course I don't mind her being a first lady, God bless her, but the president of the Republic of Uganda? And where are these young 30-something-year-old boys? And where, ordinarily, and where are some of these priests who don't have brothers, since for them they decided to serve God, meaning if they're Catholic priests who don't have children and they don't want to engage in politics, don't they have brothers, cousins, and sisters? And they don't have ambition, who would be interested, and they keep quiet? And what about the Anglican Archbishop, who, of course, in many cases will have their own children and grandchildren? And so where are they? Where is the Sheikh Mubejes and plus and their children? They're not ambitious enough? What is happening? So yes, political parties take notes, but there's something, like old Milton said, that Mr. Museveni seemed to have injected since of this Uganda. There is some kind of witchcraft that Mr. Museveni has done to Ugandans, perhaps. But I say that yes, unfortunately, you are right. Mobilization and organizations of Ugandans is our political responsibility. And so for that, I would say that my colleagues in the other political organizations have done insufficient work. And of course, you're hinting, you want to ask me that these are the challenges. Of course, yes, FDC had issues, and you saw the breakup, and my good brother Mugisha Muntu went ahead and formed his own political party. Yes, I concede that in DP there are issues, and yes, I concede that even the new, young, vibrant political organization of my good friend, good brother, Robert Chagulanyi, that people talk about issues. That will happen in every political, and of course in my political party, as I said, I'm waiting for my official mantle as the leader of Uganda People's Congress. I should formally have been doing that more than 2.5 years ago. And so those are issues which are there. But they're not the reasons enough for us to take positions. But if they're systematically, structurally weak, as some suggested, these weaknesses are manifestations of the state of the national malaise and the NRM. So don't forget, our members are citizens. Our members have lived in many of these things. And in fact, for me, even as I organize and I engage many young Ugandans, you realize that the change in culture and attitude, people not keeping time, people don't say sorry, people don't apologize, and people don't say thank you, and there's no guarantee that somebody who said, let me come back, come back means 20, 30 minutes. So it's, if you like, the challenges in the political opposition is a manifestation of the wider national malaise, where that big artistic writer, Francis Imbuga, if any of the young guys read Betrayal in the City, said, that, when the madness of an entire nation enters a single solitary mind, it's not enough to say that one person is mad. No, the state is sick. To finally conclude that brief point, when Samuel says, it is unfortunately seemingly the case that possibly even political parties in opposition, and that's the dilemma, means that until Mr. Museveni retires, and there is a new dispensation, all these things are going to be as they are. But unfortunately, somebody will have to emerge. I hope that for us in UPC, I hope that we sort ourselves quickly, and I'll be able to have a big conversation with all my colleagues.
Thank you so much. Well, Mr. Mukaaku, you were among the core people in the formation of the youngest political party in within the political space. And of course, along the way, by then it wasn't a party, but along the way, things moved into what it is right now. And when we look at, if you look at what the FDC offered during the times where they are on leading the opposition in parliament, you could see quite a number of engagements, quite a number of leading the opposition. You could see that really this is the opposition leadership. And to see that currently, you need very strong lenses to see what is being done. Yes, I talked about the opposition alternative budget that was presented, and of course it's a score. We applaud them for that. But we do not, personally, I don't think the current opposition leadership has done enough to maybe mount pressure on the current regime and things of the sort. I do not know, with your own lenses, how you see this.
Well, this discourse we're engaged in comes at a time, and I would want to make the first statement, I would savor to have it on and on until when something's done. But it comes at a time when we would now not be reaping low-lying fruits, but actually fruits that are high up and have not been defiled by, when the raindrops come, they tend to, the dust and the mud tend to catch up with those low-lying fruits. We would now be eating fruits which are fairly clean, need little cleaning. Why? Because we have come through a journey. In these 40 years of this regime, things have not been easy. I was young at the university, and even before going to the university, where political parties were banned straight away after the overthrow of the UPC government. They were banned. They could not even go out of their rooms, official offices, out of the walls. You were caught outside the wall, on the veranda, doing anything seemingly politics, you'd be arrested. I was there. I saw how the Michael Kagwas and the rest had to fight it. With UPC, we had the policy committee people, with the Cecilia Ogwal, some challenging that we had to take some people within the UPC policy committee saying no. The parties had to force their way out of those walls. The same regarding to party finance. A man called the late Dr. Paul Kawanga SSEMWOGERE fought it all his life, within and outside NRM, in the CA. He ganged up with people that our political institutions, if we have to grow as a country, must be financed. He even wrote a book. He went to South Africa to launch it, partly, and he also launched it here. It's just recently that political parties can now access some bit. But of course they are tethered, because still in financial mobilization, they are not supposed to go beyond certain currency points in mobilizing from anywhere wisher. Yes, and it's illegal to go beyond that, while the ruling party can mobilize from wherever, even bringing dirty money from the corrupt hands of those claiming these are our members. Today, I want to thank Dr. Paul Kawanga SSEMWOGERE that every party that has a member of parliament in that house gets 25 million Uganda shillings
per quarter.
Per quarter, as supervised by the Electoral Commission and also under the tutelage of iPod. 25 million Uganda shillings, taxpayers' money. So a year, every member of parliament today, when I talk about today, after in this 11th parliament, it was not the same in the
in the 10th parliament. Yes.
It was much lower. So today, if you are NUP, for example, you have 58 members of parliament, or 57, then you are earning 5.7 billion Uganda shillings a year. Can I repeat this? That's close to 6 billion. 6 billion a year. At the party headquarters, the MPs don't touch that money. Nobody touches. It's the secretariat and the party leadership that gets the 6 billion, close to 6 billion a year. Money, taxpayers' money, clean, which we call halal. In addition to other monies, SSEMWOGERE's time, when also the Cecily of Wells was still at the UPC headquarters, did not get anything, not even a dime. Dr. Chiza Besige's reform agenda, now the FDC, did not get that much money until recently when they started to get that money trickling in. But today, even a party called JEM, at least at the headquarters, we receive 100 million Uganda shillings. What would Samuel Lubega expect? You said I was one of those people. I've been in everything. I was there when Dr. Paulo Kawanga SSEMWOGERE was still in the government, and we were young Democrats at the headquarters. They could not even visit our headquarters regularly. When he jumped ship to resign from the NRM before Museveni could sack him, he found the Uganda Young Democrats had worked around the country as young people. And then we got Madam Honorable Cecilia and the UPC team to join, and then we had this 39 days of campaigns. I was there as leading the youth, both in UPC and NDP, and those who didn't have political parties. But political parties then were not even allowed to mention their political parties. I led this. I know what happened. I know how we struggled to get campaign finance for the 39 days. How we traveled every district. Districts then were big. Like Mpigi was from Gomba to
actually Busabala here was part of
Busabala, to Kira, to Busiro North, yes, where there is Busiro North, that's Kakiri, and to Entebbe. That was the district of, and we were given only one day. Look at the challenges were insurmountable. Now the districts are smaller. That means also the days given, for example, for a presidential campaign are going to be more. I got 4 months, for example, when I was running. 4 months, because the districts were about 120 something. So they had to give us about 4 months, because every district, it is like now a tradition, it is given one day. But still it was huge. But with the party, the DP did not have money for the delegates conference. I got this money from Westminster Foundation, 450 millions, which was eaten by some of the officials. I have that pain. Recently, I went to full pain to rethink what DP was doing, like we did during our Young Democrats, to rethink what DP was doing. DP had sunk to the lowest, and we decided to create a UID reunion. We had 8 reunions, mega reunions. I'm not mentioning the smaller ones. which cost us between 45 million to 77 million Uganda shillings. People wondered how we could make that miracle happen. We did pre-activities to go and mobilize people, whether it was the Gulu reunion, Masaka, Jinja, Kampala, Mukono, and elsewhere. Everyone saw this. We're not getting money from, it's only the Democratic Party then, the National Treasurer of Commander, sanctioned. I would give Mao this credit. At least they gave us in the first reunion up to 20 million Uganda shillings. Up to 20 million Uganda shillings. The rest of the money we mobilized from MPs, from Mwanga Chivumbi and the rest. Now today, when we are getting 6 billion Uganda shillings a year, times 5, you'd expect this, for example, NUP, to be performing to its highest. I sacrifice my blood to create the people power, to go through these, you remember these by-elections, up to Arua of Kasiyano. What did we see? First of all, purging the leadership that we created. Kasiyano was hit on the head. Kasiyano, you know what we went through with Kasiyano. It was war. We supported Ayume's son, but we did not support Kasiyano. Can I repeat this? We supported Ayume's son, NRM. And the whole presidential candidate of NUP and People Power had the audacity to say, give the vote to Ayume. Ayume's son, who never contributed anything. And we hit Kasiyano. In NRM, there was one woman, I remember, I will never forget. When we were in Chadon, you must have recorded this as journalists. A woman called Kadogo, who behaved like a parliamentarian for the whole country and said, I think Bobby Wine is a good man to take to parliament. She even went to the how do we call it, the podium during the rallies. Even when Mr. Museveni came to disorganize our rallies. This woman was taken to discipline for
the stadium.
Yes. Yeah. Madame Lumumba took her to the disciplinary committee, extraordinary disciplinary committee. She was invited to State House. She was told never to do that. She was almost losing her campaign for Iyala. What did we do? We did not give her, as People Power, as NUP, our support to make sure that this is our fellow fighter. In any of the elections, she was not supported. She gave her money. She contributed. She put her boots on the ground. She's a neighbor to Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi. Yeah. But can you imagine? In that campaign of Iyala, we could certainly support other people, but we could not support Kadogo, the Honorable. Can you imagine? You deny that lady of any support who helped you during the time of need, but we couldn't. That is one. Number two, I talked about Kasiyano. Mwiru, did we support him? He single-handedly paid money for the nurturing of People Power. I'm not going to talk about the candidates of German in Mujiri. Then it came to us. What happened? Bring Senyonyi, bring Katana, bring Rubongoya. At that stage, when you need people tested, your generals tested, they purged us all. Now the question now comes. We as opposition, I know what's happening in Parliament. How the parliamentary group now of NUP or whatever party, I also know, I will talk about JEMA. Even JEMA is the parliamentary group speaking to those in administration the other side. Is the parliamentary group of my party, DP, speaking to those who are not members of the parliamentary group, the other side in the administration. Normally what happens, Norbert Mao and the rest suppress the views of the members of parliament. So there is a war, a civil war. There is a civil war between Kamwocha and the parliament. Today, I see how they vilify everyone. And they lump everyone to be the bad boy. Now, Dr. Bedi Bwanika, a veteran in this Because Abed Mwanika shares the same investment, whether it is blood or whatever, whether it is creating the way for the people now leading opposition. It is Dr. Abed and I, and Honorable Mabike, and the Rubowa, and the Mutema, who is now in the UK, and the Gerard Kobwem, who is in Canada. What is happening? Vilifying Abed. Abed, that one is like a Kagabo. Can you compare Abed and a Kagabo? Because he talked about, let's talk face to face with the regime to release those young boys who have been incarcerated for the other 2 years. Now, yesterday I saw a letter from who? Comrade Nyanzi. Writing to President Museveni. Insinuating about getting This is not the type of dialogue that we need, that Abed was talking about. You verified him yesterday while doing the same and secretly. You get the idea?
And for different cause.
And for a different cause. And for your personal interest. So the questions are these, because we don't have time. Number one, we who are in the opposition, why do we stop the normal functioning of our party organs, even party caucuses in parliament, and the party caucuses in parliament not working with the party administration, in whose interest, and to legitimize who? Number two, why do we connive, consciously connive, with the captor to carry out things that do not benefit neither the struggle nor the individuals that have suffered with us in order to liberate this country? Number three, why do we purge a whole interest group that is tested to get another group, probably from the captor himself, in whose interest and to legitimize what? Number four, why do we deny internal democracy vis-a-vis constitution, what would be constitutional internal reforms, and bring frivolous and disturbing reforms to help who and to legitimize who? Let me tell you, Museveni is the one who started this game. You see, I am going to go for only one term. You remember? I'm not even a politician. Eventually, what did he become? But secondly, now today, I was, and I want to emphasize this, I was the person, almost the soul and the sword of looking for candidates ever since I came back from the UK. Looking for candidates. In the people power effort, I was in charge of that, self-given and also eventually given by everyone else. Until when I became chairman of the Electoral Commission of People Power. Who doesn't know that? Before I was thrown out of that, even without any discussion, with all the insinuations, I had gotten 3,567 candidates around the country. Councillors, MPs, mayors, and the like. What did we get? 60 MPs, by and large, 59 from Buganda, and the one from Busoga. 59. We need 529 MPs, for God's sake. We have not even supplied a fifth of that parliament. And we are now populistically talking about only 2 terms.
You're not a member of the people power.
And when you take, no, I'm talking as one who founded this, okay. As one who, I said, my soul and sword.
Yes, but
I'm on record.
But you ceased being a member of the NUP.
Never mind.
No, but it's talking
never mind.
It's talking as a leader of opposition.
Today, President Museveni would be boasting of having created a number of political parties. Yeah. Can he boast it like the way I do, that I helped create a young party, which I'm not part, a young party called NOP? Can he boast like so? Because for him, it is about what he gets out of it. For me, it is about creating institutions that will work for this country, whether I am or am not part of them. So I went in up to Buvuma, looking for candidates. They were not easy to get. Some of them, we didn't help. Many of them, we didn't help them. I went up to the mountains of Bukonjo. But today, I'm telling you, we have only 60 MPs. 58 now, they have reduced 57. Some of them have not even been given a chance to legislate, like Segirinya and Sewanyana. Now we are talking about, now this is one term, next term, they have to be out. You are only looking for 60. Now, when those MPs, good as they may be, Mwanga Chivumbi, Mpuga, Segona, Namboze, and the rest, because I, as DP block, I have 48 MPs in that group. 48 MPs in that group. If you want to mention, I can tell you. Definitely Nyeko is not mine. Senyong is not mine. Kagabo is not mine, but Dr. Bedi is. Juliet is, Juliet of Masaka is. In Masaka I can't count. Come to Mawokota, come elsewhere. Even the one of Ginger, I'm the one who looked for her. Manjed. Now you're telling them, please, after this, you are no longer going to be MPs. When they migrate, they will be migrating to who? To UPC? FDC? Where are they going to migrate? Kagabo already is migrating. It's going where?
MK movement.
Let's not behave like the populists that this is a serious war. This is a serious war. This is a serious cause. Whether I'm now a member of parliament or not, I'll continue to look for revolutionary candidates who must
how are you
help
going
us
to
go
deal
beyond
with
that.
this, Mr. Mukaaku?
So the issues of, number one, of having a serious talk of leadership that does not ignore legitimate roles and also revolutionary roles is very, very important. Number two, the issue of accountability. Accountability. And the issue of leadership failure, wherever it is. In our institutions, NRM, UPC, DP, NUP. It must be faced up squarely without fear or favor. And then the other, because now, look, didn't we get the other day something called an armored vehicle, bulletproof? Didn't we get one?
Yeah.
Did we get it because we got it because of our status that we have fought for? Like members of parliament get these cars. They are not their cars. They get it because of the job we have given them to. What has that car helped me as a soldier, as a veteran, as a general, as a field marshal?
We need to run out of here, but just in 10 seconds.
This is the question of accountability.
In 10 seconds, is the struggle
then lastly,
for liberation still
where
on?
are we today? Just so many months before, I've had people just carelessly announcing, we shall have a demo, we shall have a demo. What work have we done to have a demo serious as the ones of Kenya and elsewhere? Just to show that we were serious in organizing
in order
this.
to prepare the ground for it.
That's what I call leadership failure. We need to unite the opposition. We need to unite the forces that are fed up within the NRM. We need to work for transition, work for dialogue. All these are serious matters if we must pull our state out of the quagmire.
In 10 seconds, is the struggle for liberation still on?
With whatever I've said, make a fair judgment.
It's not negotiable.
Thank you. Well, we are running out of time. I'm afraid we need to leave this place. And I want to give Mr. Ochieno 2 minutes to give me your parting shot, and then we call it.
I'm actually delighted that I didn't speak much about this. And you realized I was nearly fudging the conversation because I was really trying to avoid conversations about my other political colleagues.
I don't know whether Ochieno even had. You see, we have talent in the opposition. One of them is music and all this, which can help.
Yeah.
Instead of bringing revolutionary songs, we are now talking about the Naruman songs.
Okay. Anyway, so I deliberately left that in part because we want to still have a conversation where there's an exit going forward.
Yeah.
And then number two, that possibly from my perspective, I could only say so much about my other colleagues without being unreasonable. And that I can only generally authoritatively talk about UPC. But Sam has said more than you might actually perceive and he might actually say, so we need to take what he said seriously as a reflection, really quite impressively, because we've been with this game with him for a long time. I've got certain other instances from him which I did not get as much as of today, but it's very important, reflective of the challenges of the struggles we've had from the time NRA came to power. To date, including the struggle leading to pluralism and how we are wasting it today as democratic opposition. In UPC, unfortunately, as you know, we believe, as you know, Uganda House is under capture by NRA because effectively our official party headquarters is controlled by Jimmy. Jimmy has got his arrangement with his wife and a couple of people with Mr. Museveni. So our party headquarters is under capture formally. But number two, Jimmy, according to the Court of Appeal ruling of 2020, September 7th, he's not leader of UPC. But he controls our party headquarters with active support by the regime. When the elections post the court ruling for determining that Jim is not leader, following the election of Olara and resignation of Olara, that's the election in which I came in and contested with Walubira and others, and I think we've had this conversation, and I won those elections in December. These elections were fudged thanks really to the manipulations and some of the things that Sam is talking about, which is now talking about not only the national polity, but maybe some hands which are actively designed by people in charge who don't want sensible, serious citizens to take charge of political position and therefore alternative governments and prepare. So the destabilization process, so I know that. But so it means therefore that while I won and these things are fine, and while this matter is in court, now 2 years on, unresolved, 4 different issues, my person who allegedly got himself sworn in as Peter Walubiri, do you know his office?
No.
When was the last time in the last 2.5 years you had him anywhere? Does your camera lady know how he looks like?
I doubt.
He is the one holding the official office of the party, which should be held by me. Now, that is the mess in Uganda People's Congress. So everything I've been doing the last 2.5 years with Sam, we are doing these things regardless of the offices that we hold. And thankfully, in my case, again with Sam, thanks to some of our own earlier experiences, you guys are able to listen to us because we are veterans of middle-ranking part of the struggles post Mr. Museveni. Some of the things are designed, deliberated by the state, but the reality is that some of these are things of our own making. But Sam and I and a few of our other colleagues are completely resolved and determined that the status quo is not negotiable and the future of this country must be claimed back and in the hands of the citizens of this country, and this struggle is on. I'm very confident that, look, Museveni will go, and at some stage there will be Uganda in which Sam and I talk about nationalism, national reconciliation, and a roundtable kind of stuff. There must be a post-Uganda, post-Museveni Uganda, but one which is civil, free, democratic, and for all.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. I want to thank the team I've worked with. Definitely, we cannot go beyond this time. We have come to the end of the Hotline show, and I want to thank my panelists. Mr. Ochieno, we are always here with you every Monday. And of course, it has been a pleasure having you, Mr. Lubega, on the show. And maybe sometime again in the future, we'll be able to invite you.
Especially on this topic, because I'm very passionate.
Yes, sure, I did.
We can't liberate the country without talking about this.
So the team and, of course, the team in the control room, in the studio, I want to thank you all for putting this together. And for our viewers, I'm sorry I did not go through your comments. But let's keep the conversation flowing on our social media platforms. And this brings us to the end of tonight's edition of The Hotline Show. My name is Abdul Latif, and have a lovely night.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.